Okay, here we go. Good day. My name is Phil the Cruz. Welcome to Cruising with Phil. I'm laughing because I figured out how to do the screen split. Today, my special guest, long time in the making. I've been waiting for this interview for the last few months because she's a busy lady in her community of Etobicoke. She's the voice of Etobicoke Voice. Her name is Jennifer Alexander, and I'm so happy to have you. To meet you the first time online. Finally, I've tweeted for so many months. So, hello. Hey, Jennifer, how you doing?
Hi, Phil. Thanks for having me. Yeah, as I'm always talking to you online, and it's like, oh yeah, there's a person behind that, and I see you, and nobody ever sees me. So
I know.
yeah,
You got to tell them how we have to tell people how we met. We met through Robert, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Talking
well,
about traffic.
I was teasing him on. We were going back on the tweet, and I said, you should run for council because he has a lot of voice and all that. I kept harassing, but I didn't know you were listening in, right? And then you came and intervened. You said, "Leave him alone," right? And you're talking about, I'm part of the, I'm an active community member of my community, and you told me stuff you did there. Then I said, oh, and then you told me something really interesting. I'd be interested in you, which you said you're working on something for teenagers. I remember, right? Some sort of a
Trying to.
yeah, yes, remember. Oh, that's a
Yeah.
secret, I know. But I really so that caught my eye. I said, oh wow, she's a community active member. So let's get it. Let's ask her some questions. That's how I got talking to you. You were talking about, and then when did you start doing the paper for the Voice?
Well, I only started this in November. I think I launched it in the first week of December. It's something I've wanted to do for years, but I was always doing stuff with school councils. My kids were little, and honestly, there was a lot of self-doubt and going, well, how am I even going to do this? But I discovered Substack, the website that a lot of people have been moving to because of concerns with certain apps. And I was
Okay.
like, this is really easy. So all of a sudden, everything I wanted to do, I could do in one website. So I took all my files, and I've got like files like this and different stories I wanted to write. And I was like, I may as well do it. My kids are older, they're teenagers. So yeah, so we'll see what
So,
happes.
so tell people who you are and what you're all about. That's what.
Yeah. So my name is Jennifer Alexander. I am a lifelong resident of Etobicoke Center. I have a 13-year-old and a 15-year-old, and I've been at home with them. I basically, from the day my daughter was born, I worked part-time though for many, many years, many nights, and basically my husband and I basically traded off kids. Um, but about 6 years ago, I was able to completely stay home, and I got involved in school councils and started in the elementary, K-5 school, moved on to the middle school. I did a couple of years where I was chairing two councils in the neighborhood, and and it just evolved from there. I got involved in the traffic issues in Etobicoke Center, all around Bloor and the West Mall area, and I was able to kind of take that out of the schools and into the neighborhood and advocate. And so currently we're fighting for a crosswalk in the Bloor West Mall area near Bloordale Middle School. I've got connected with the counselor and with our trustees here in the area. And then I just started to talk to people on Twitter and started realizing that I could kind of take what I was doing in the schools, move it to all of Etobicoke, and from there wanted to become a community builder. And that's kind of where I've been in the last couple of years, and expanding on that. And that's where the Etobicoke Voice comes in. It was just a matter of, okay, how am I going to connect people? Because I'm talking to everybody on Twitter, I'm talking to people in Facebook groups, but I'm not necessarily catching everybody that I talk to in my neighborhood who have concerns. So hopefully over time, I'll be able to branch it out and to figure out how to kind of get the popularity that I'm getting online and get that into the real world, and go from there and talk to different associations and learn from people, and learn from people like Phil who are putting it out there and getting out there and trying to, get to the point where I'm not so shy.
I'm learning from you. I read your first article on the Voice. I didn't know Etobicoke was a city once. I totally didn't know about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, wow.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it don't. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. How did that come about? I mean, like they went from city to borough or division or what?
So it was. So I guess around in the 40s and 50s, and my family moved into the area in the early, mid 50s, I guess, mid 50s, early 60s. So it was all still pretty much farmland, and it was a township. It was always connected, I guess, to Toronto, but it wasn't part of the metropolitan area. So when it eventually became a city in the late 60s, and I have brain fog issues, so I don't always remember dates as well as I do when I'm typing. But up until 1998, for at least 20 years, Etobicoke was the city of Etobicoke, and that's what I grew up in. I grew up with the Etobicoke Board of Education, the Etobicoke library system, everything. And then it was during amalgamation with Mike Harris, who then created the bigger super city, and that's where we kind of lost out our little niche here.
That must have been quite the shock to the community. They're like from city to like non-city anymore, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of longtime residents who are still bitter about it, just because we lost, we did lose services, and we lost, you know, our identity, and now in the big scheme of things of city council, there's only 3 representatives out of 25 representing Etobicoke, and we're over 300,000 people. So
It's so big. Oh my gosh.
yeah.
I've worked in that area. What was the reason why they went from city to like take the city out of it? Why did they do that? What's the reason? Just because of the amalgamation or what?
Yeah, it was so what happened in the late 90s, it was when Mike Harris decided at the provincial level that I think it was also, and it wasn't just Toronto, it was Hamilton and other regions where it was a cost-saving measure. They felt that there was too much duplication on emergency services, schools, libraries, and such. Yeah.
You still have your old ID that says you're the city of Etobicoke? Any of your old ID, like from way back?
Sorry.
Sorry. Do you still have any old identification, like says city of Etobicoke on your like old licenses or old ID? That means something like
Oh, yeah, like our notebooks, like when I was in junior school, like and I graduated high school in 99, and so when this happened in 98, so basically I always went to school in Etobicoke, and our notebooks always had the little like Etobicoke Board of Education, and you know, everything was, and library books, if you look through the libraries here for really really old books, if maybe some are still on the shelf, you'll see Etobicoke library system. And if you look it up online, if you look it up online under looking up images, they do kind of come up, but not as often as I used to be able to find them. So, but they're out there.
Do you have any? Does your family have like old pictures of way back from like living in Etobicoke, like the old like black and white pictures?
My mom does. Yeah, like because my grandparents, like the building where I grew up, on the West Mall, it literally stopped at our building, and we're like a couple just up from Bloor Street. Everything else, they looked at the back of their building, and it was all farm, and there was an old dilapidated barn that apparently my grandmother used to tell my mom and my aunt, don't go in because you don't know what's in there, and there's apple trees all. Yeah, there's apple trees all over our neighborhood, and people get mad because there's all these apples falling in the yards and on the streets making messes, but it's because there was an apple orchard.
Do you still have pictures of all that? All the old, like all that scenery and all?
I don't know, no, but I know that I wish I did. But if you go, like, there are people in the area who do still have it and have posted it online. There's Facebook groups dedicated to it.
Put it on the net, or even in your paper if you want, you know. Like
I've tried.
We were renovating this old building like an old house years ago in a company I worked for just part-time, and we found this old scrapbook, and the guy had been collecting since 1919 and going forward, right? And
that's awesome.
And we ended up giving it to a library because it was so, oh my god, I wanted it so bad. They had the opening of Mount Rushmore, and they had the original tickets. Wow. Yeah, the original and the opening of CNE, the original tickets from way back. It was all nicely done, all written out, no markings or whatever. And we said we can't keep it. It's just too much. It's invaluable. We gave them one of the libraries, and they did whatever they want with it. But it was so nice. I just love old stuff like that. Like, well, I love old stuff. Like I got pictures of the old building the DVP. Yeah. My stepfather, he's passed away now. He said back when he was a kid in the 40s, my stepfather as a kid, they used to go swimming in the DVP. And then when they were going to clear out the area, they all sat on top of the hill watching them blast away before they started building the highway.
Yeah.
I wish they'd taken pictures of that. That would have been something to see, you know?
Oh, exactly. I mean, I hear stories all the time about basically the building of the 427. And I mean, the buildup of this community was basically because the 427 became a 6-lane highway. But in the 50s, it was still like a 2-lane highway just
Yeah,
up
so
from
and they say
Dundas.
there's nothing around the highway. It's all it's all a clear field, right? Like
Yeah.
Eglinton was, you know. So what prompted you to do the voice? I'm just curious to start doing the paper.
Basically, I'm just looking for ways to community build because I find that there isn't a lot of there downtown. There's a lot of like YMCA's and different places to meet. We don't really have community centers here in Etobicoke, especially in Etobicoke Center, and so everybody is very disconnected. And but when you run into people on the street, we're all talking about the same thing. We're moaning and groaning about the traffic, and everything's getting worse with the traffic. We're looking, to figure out where to put our kids in programs because there's very little space, and we're talking, and I'm thinking this is things that we all have in common, but nobody else is there's no way around it. And I also noticed that in other wards there is a lot of there's newsletters, there's things that come out from their counselors. Here we're not getting that kind of information. Things are not always transparent. So I'll see something on Twitter and I'll see people have gone to a meeting here or a meeting there, and I'm thinking I would have loved to have gone, but I had no idea it was happening. So I'm trying to condense everything and work with the different associations and try and bring everybody to one place where they can talk about what's going on, so that people start, feeling more of a community, not feeling so left out and on their own, and kind of just start working together. Because as I keep telling people, if you work together and you join forces and you join voices, things can change. And there's a lot of people here who just think, nothing's ever going to change. And I'm like, well, you're going to fulfill self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, I'm surprised that, like what you said, there's very few, no community centers in Etobicoke. Etobicoke's so big, and like,
Yeah,
I'm just surprised there's nothing there, really.
Yeah, and I think this is where a lot of things come back to where we were a separate city doing our own thing. The community school that we used to have a really good community school program with the Etobicoke Parks and Rec, and a lot of schools, and they still do. They'll have an attached office, and I mean, when I grew up here, we had our local middle school had a youth club every Friday night, and they did dances and they did all sorts of things, sports and stuff. And so when we became the city of Toronto, a lot of that disappeared. But now there's no space. So there's still a lot of sports, and the schools are permitted out for all sorts of expensive soccer teams. And
but don't even go hockey. Don't even talk about hockey.
There's a lot of hockey.
I got a friend in the military. This is like years back. All the kids are growing up, but he had on the base he had small, they call PMQs, private mess quarters for families that had kids. And anyways, he had 9 kids in his family, from baby to 9. What happened was his wife's side has triplets, his side has twins. So they had 3 sets of twins, 1 set of triplets, and 1 single. I think I read, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God. And they all lived in 3 bedrooms in this little house on the base. I'm just saying, and they all and they're all hockey players. Oh my God. And hockey's, I mean, I love hockey, but it's expensive, So
exactly.
I was gonna ask you, what about what are the libraries? Isn't there libraries that you can like rent out or just book some of the hallways? Is there any spaces there in the libraries there?
They're small. They're small. Eatonville Library, which is like our main library, I guess, in this area of around the 427 in Burnenthorpe, they knocked down the library and rebuilt a beautiful new library. But it's still, I mean, you don't have the resources that you have maybe down at Fort York, or, I mean, we have one big main library, which is Richview, up at Richview, up around Eglinton. And that's where basically you can rent the rooms and you can do things, but it's not easy to get to, and it's not close to the subway station, and there's limited buses. And so you're kind of, it's because we're so long north-south, because we're right from the lakeshore all the way up, to the border with Vaughan. So it's not easy to get around, unfortunately. Yeah.
So Richview is the nearest library for your area. Richview is Eglinton and Eglinton.
For Richview would be Eglinton and Royal. It's near Eglinton and Kipling, or Eglinton and Islington. Eglinton and
That's a
Islington, I
lot of way
think.
for you guys. Yeah, that's a long way.
Yeah, and I don't drive, so.
Yeah, and especially in the wintertime. What about some of the local churches there? Like I know a lot of churches I go to, like they're all empty basements. People rent them out or just book it.
Yeah.
You can, I don't know if you can do that in your area. You got churches, you can book some of the basements for a
Yeah.
community. And there's like we can ask the priest or whatever church, and they're also more accommodating. Say we want to have a community meeting, make it a regular thing. I know like one church over here, they have a Wednesday meet and greet for just a social thing. One of the churches, and they
Yeah.
meet every Wednesday in the basement. Not a lot of people come, but and they show up, and
Yeah.
it's like a routine. I don't know if you can an idea. I'm just thinking like maybe some of the churches do.
Yeah. Well, it is, and that's the thing. It is a great idea, and we do have a United Church right down on Bloor Street in the neighborhood, and they rent out their basement for all sorts of things, and they have so many different organizations out of there. But everywhere else, it's just like they do it, but I think the desire and the people who are doing things, they still stay very close knit, and that's again like with the Etobicoke Voice. At least people can start to find out what's going on. So I've learned about so many different organizations in just like the last 6 months. So now maybe I can have other people learn about them, and they can get memberships and start having town halls.
What about I was thinking legions. I know like some like there's 2 legions. You can also rent out the halls. I don't know if you have that anymore. Some of the old vet legions there, and I don't know if you have to pay or you can have to be a member or whatever, but you can also book the area. They got a lot of space there. And like a lot of these churches, these vets halls, they're all empty, just sitting there, right? They have
exactly. Yeah.
It's such a waste. I'd rather just use it and let it sit there idle. I'm just trying to think about easy do your community get together, because I'm just disappointed that there's no community centers in Etobicoke. Etobicoke's so long. Like I get friends that live there. I said when I come visit, like I got like a day, I'll just come visit you in Etobicoke.
Well, and there's an organization, like their big thing right now is to put in the Central Etobicoke, the organization's the Central Etobicoke Hub, I think. I think that's what the name is. And they've been working for years, and they're hoping to see, and we've been told by the city for many, many years, that when the new Civic Center is built up around by Kipling Station, they're calling it the KIP District. It's at the 6 Points area where they had all the roads meeting and everything was all over the place. So they fixed the roads where Dundas and Bloor and Kipling meet, and they demolished the Westwood Theater, which was a very old, very well-loved movie theater, but falling apart. Yeah. So they've already started putting in all the condos. There's tons of condos there, but they are putting in a new Etobicoke City Hall. And they're supposed to be putting in a library and a YMCA and all sorts of stuff. Yeah, so it will be great.
What section will this be happening?
That's the thing, because this was supposed to, this I think they got started in when my kids were babies. And I mean, by the time this is done, I will be a grandmother. So I'm like,
maybe the LRT will be built but finished by then.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how we'll get around. Exactly.
It's over here, the LRT, like it's all finished on our side from all the way up to down to Kennedy. It's all done. Like it's all just sitting there.
Yeah.
It's all they have grass growing, right?
Yeah.
Little areas. But it just sits idle. There were signs, you can't go there, you can't go in there and all that. But I don't have you seen the bus shelters, the LRT? I talked about this on the video. It's all empty spaces. There's no enclosures like the old bus shelters. So I'm thinking in the winter time, are you gonna stand there in the freezing cold? Like it's all open. Unless you're gonna put something in, maybe, I don't know. But you know what's gonna happen? People are gonna be waiting for the LRT, and they'll be going across the street waiting for the old bus shelter, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then when the LRT is gonna come, they're gonna go. Everybody, it's gonna become like a routine. Back to the
Exactly. We my husband and I, we drive all over the place. We go all over the place. He used to work in the East End, and we still sometimes go out to Markham and stuff, just to go to Markville Mall or something for something different. And you see the buildup of the transit system out in Markham and in York region, and all the electric signs and when things are coming. And I'm just sitting there going, yeah, so it can be done. Mississauga has that now, in some areas.
I talked to a counselor on the Twitter. he's the first counselor to respond to me. He's a really nice guy. He ran in 4 years ago, and he lost by 2%. So he ran again. He won this time, Ward 6.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to get him for an interview.
Yeah, I was complimenting him last night on Twitter because he was talking about probably the same thing we were looking at.
Like 3 kids. I forget his name now. Sorry,
yes.
but I just met him briefly. But
yeah,
I went on his web, and they're actually finishing off a women's shelter or
nice.
house, nice building for women and children being abused and all.
Yeah.
And, housing and all. I said, hey, can you bring it over here?
Well, that's what I was saying. I was saying I think that your residents are so lucky because you're so worried about traffic and you want to put in road safety. I've been working on a crosswalk for 5 years, and it's just sitting in community council now. So
I don't understand. I feel like just want to just paint the lines yourself, like some people do.
Oh, my husband's always like, let's just do this and do that. Like, I'll sit there and I'll be tweeting and I'll be talking to people. I'll be talking to you or something, and my husband's like, I agree with Phil. Just exactly. Let's just do this or do that. I'm like, yeah, but Brian, then they're gonna come and they're gonna,
But didn't they did with a bike path not too long ago? They took the matters into their hands. They got tired of waiting and they just. I saw a picture of that. And some people getting frustrated. I don't know the big deal about taking so long. And it's quicker to save a tree than build a community hub.
Exactly. And what I find really unfair is I will see things happening in other wards. There was a crosswalk put in front of a school in Scarborough. I believe that the staff report said the $100,000, it wasn't worth it. It shouldn't be done. But the community, yeah, exactly. But they knew that they needed it for the safety. A little boy was tragically killed, and then the counselor brought it to council, and it got approved 24-1, and unfortunately, it was my counselor that voted against it, and I'm looking at this going, this is why I can't get one.
Who's your counselor?
Stephen Holiday.
The No Man? Oh, great.
I'm here to work with everybody who's willing to work with me.
I know. I'm just. All Americans call him the No Man. The Beatles song.
I'll tell you.
The Beatles song, the Nowhere Man.
Yeah. If he actually pays attention to his Twitter, he knows that I'm not happy. I put it out there.
I make jokes about him. I shouldn't be. I call him the turtle. You're gonna laugh. I made it. You want to see my impersonation? I shouldn't do it.
I have to actually meet him in person in February for a school event. But I don't think he's watching.
I'm gonna have. It's nothing personal, Stephen Hawley. I just haven't joked with you. I like having fun. But when he does his council meetings, you ever notice how when he presents himself? When I first saw him, first got to see him, I thought he was blind. I didn't know I thought he was visually impaired, right? Yeah, because he doesn't look at anybody when he talks. He's almost listen when he talks. Yeah. He says he takes things really personal with somebody who's like Shelley Carroll made a word, said a word.
Yeah.
He said, Madam Speaker, I'm just wondering if is that word against me, or are you speaking about he's talking like this? Is he I thought he was blind. I didn't know he had because he had no glasses, right? But just that's to me. But he's very sensitive,
Yeah, and his father was actually the mayor of Etobicoke.
His father. Yeah. His father
and I voted for him. I met his father many times as a student, and I was very impressed. And he was our counselor until he left to go to provincial politics. Yep. We had an interim counselor for a short period, and then Stephen took over. And so, apparently you have to have the last name Holiday to be a counselor here. And I would say this to his face. He knows. If he's looked, he knows I was supporting other people, and I was very adamant on Twitter that he should not be acclaimed, because nobody should be acclaimed as a counselor. And
is that because of the family and all that? Yeah. We talked about some of the debates about the. Nothing against him personally, but his father is a staple. I remember people telling me that you could actually shake his hand, and he was busy. Say, "Excuse me, I'm coming back to you. I'll talk to you in about 5 minutes," and he'd actually
Yeah.
do that. Like he wouldn't
Yeah.
shut anybody off, whatever. But
Exactly.
I, I like the word you claimed. Like Leighton, also, the our late Jack Leighton,
Yeah.
great man. And I remember
Absolutely.
I saw him at Parliament, and he's getting more into politics, and he talked to this I forgot the name of the politician, and he said, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be in the Parliament when they speak it, and the guy just shunned him off like he was just being ridiculous. And I said, that's so ignorant, and you know
Yeah.
what? He got there, and we got,
Yeah.
and that was
Yeah.
amazing. I watched that guy when he dies. Actually, he's the only counselor like that passed away that I really just it hit me so bad at being like, oh my gosh, you know.
Yeah, yeah. When he had to leave his position in Ottawa, and it didn't sound good. I was just like, "You've got to be kidding me!" Like I
Yeah,
had so much hope, and that was the first time that I voted orange, and I
really.
would have been a diehard NDPer, and followed him if he had continued. Yeah,
I love that. I think he's such a nice guy. He was such a people guy. And like
exactly.
when I ran my election, I took things from him and also Rob Ford. I took his Rob Ford always says he always phones people back on his when it on
Yeah,
his and I made sure I did that. I always did that. I always follow his example about that for the people
yeah.
and especially Jack and also who's the other Holiday Leighton. Who's the other one? There's another one. Vaughn.
Oh,
Vaughn.
yeah, yeah.
Huge Vaughn.
I was a huge fan of his father.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
It's hard because these three gentlemen set such precedents in their performance in City Hall, in council. So it's hard you can't follow that. I mean, nothing personal about the
exactly.
Suns, but trying to make their own identity is a little bit more challenging.
Yeah, yeah.
Rather
And
being
I
rather being a no man, how about being an agreeable man, work with the people? Because that's what I always hear about Holiday. Just the even from the board candidates, when all they talk about, he's
yeah.
especially him. But it's unfortunate a bit that, like I've seen all the reports, you've seen all the council meetings and all like just
Yeah.
why no, why no? I mean, like I said, he's the only one that voted no against you know. But it's just, I don't know. I just find it. I just did it. I just watched the thing on the Stephen Pickham. He did a thing about the housing. I don't know if you saw my.
Yeah.
I know you saw my videos about Bradford. What I said.
Yeah, and I haven't because I didn't actually watch the agenda the other night, but I'm going to tonight, and it makes sense. Yeah.
I watched. I made it two comments. I was being very. I have nothing. I like the guy. I support him. But I was just being. You can't. He said that housing is infrastructure, and I said that's not true. That's impossible.
Yeah.
Housing is a commodity. Housing came after infrastructure. I
Yeah.
made examples in the video. You saw. I said people come from different countries. They establish stores. You seen all Etobicoke. There should be one over in Etobicoke. They
Yeah.
just closed down not too long ago. And that community or that store, whatever the nationality is, they established that community. You know,
Yeah.
you'd like to see it. Maybe being naive saying it, but I like to see the city compensate every original business owner that's established a community hub in Toronto, like the Portuguese area, the Italian area. These guys,
Yeah.
and now they're all gone, they're shut down. But there should be some sort of a plaque, a memorial, some sort of compensation. Say, you know what? Thank you for bringing your business to Canada, to Toronto, and establishing the Toronto community of this area, this hub. Like the Portuguese area, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
go to
Absolutely.
Domino's. There's a guy who used to own a hat store. He made hats, original hats, and the
Yeah.
Domino's center took over. Conglomerate bought over the small man, and he's gone. He's there like over 50 years, but he sold all his stuff, and it was like
Yeah.
he's stable. He established that Lawrence area, and people don't know him for that. They called the Hat Man, the Lawrence, and now he's
Yeah.
gone. But I wish
Yeah.
I don't know if you agree. They should be some sort of like maybe for his descendants now of compensation. Thank you for your grandfather, your great grandfather for establishing this part of the Toronto hub, this community, and that should be actually. I wish there'd be a book out there. I mean, I've
Yeah.
seen things like you're, but just like, because people also say we have books like the Portuguese community established by this, but very brief information. But there's no exact pictures like this store. What about a store, restaurant? Schwartz, some Jewish delicatessen
Yeah. The short style. Yeah. Yeah.
that established a
Uh,
great community. That was,
exactly.
and talk about community that established the community that built that
Yeah.
congregation of community gathering, knowing what your buddy is, know how your neighbor is, and you all depend on each other.
Yeah.
When you bring big chains, and sad to say, I mean, we all shop there, but it takes away from that community. It does.
Yeah.
Because now
No.
you're
Yeah.
yeah, you're
I
fighting for
mean,
it.
Yeah, like my grandmother, her she was fully Italian, and they came to Canada in the turn of the century, and they established a fruit stand and later on a fruit market in
Really?
Peterborough. Yeah, and so they were in that until and her father was actually a tradesman in during the Depression and such, but they left that fruit store when they moved to Toronto. They left their oldest daughter who had established her family in Peterborough, and they kept it going. And there was a huge, and I had no idea until I started researching a few years ago, there's a huge Italian community in Peterborough. And I was like, and my family was connected to that. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's amazing.
So because of that store was there, that's how they got established, the community?
That store basically was serving the community, and they had rooms for rent for the other Italian guys who were coming in, because the Italians at that time, a lot of these young guys were coming to help build the railroad. So they were, and this wasn't like the 1800s. This was 1905, 1910, 1915, things like that. So yeah, like I absolutely understand. I mean, my grandmother's aunt married a gentleman whose family owned a fruit store on the Danforth, and I still see their bananas. Like, they were mainly bananas; they were banana importers, and I still see their trucks all the time, going up and down the 27 to go down to the food terminal, and I'm like, that's awesome. I mean, nobody in that family would have any clue that I was like married into that family like 3 generations ago. But yeah, I think there needs to be a history book. There's a history book there.
That should be your next article in the Voice. Their history of your family.
It might. Oh well, I've looked at doing other Substacks because
That's a nice history right there. Like, people know that. You're like, oh wow, like I didn't know that store established that area. Like, you're in Peterborough, thing. That's a nice story. That's a nice background story about your family. Like what you just told me. That's you've been so your family's been established like way back. I just came in '66. Oh
well, I have levels. I have levels because my grandmother was born here, but her family was all born in Italy. My grandfather, her husband, was born in Holland and somehow managed to survive World War II. And they came here in the 50s. And I have a whole huge history book in the making of the Jewish side and the Holocaust on our family. And then my dad came in the 70s from the UK. So I am first generation, second generation, and third generation.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's a good story. I was like, I'd see it. Put that in your voice. That'd be nice to see that whole history. I mean, so much to cover, right?
That was
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say that's what started the Cloverdale story in the Voice from 2 issues ago.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, because that's how my family moved into the area because my grandfather took over a store there. Yeah.
We got about 1 minute, 2 minutes left. Do you want to go to the second session for the next one for 2:00 and take a break?
Sounds good.
Yeah, next you go for a coffee or whatever, or tea, whatever. Go back and discuss more about yourself. You got 2 kids, a boy and a girl?
Sorry?
You got 2, a boy and a girl?
Yep, I have a 15-year-old daughter, a 13-year-old son, and they've grown up just like I have in Etobicoke. So, yep, there's a lot there with all the same schools and same neighborhoods and everything.
That's great. So we'll come back in. It's got 1.5 minutes left. So we'll talk about actually more stuff you've been doing. You covered some of the stuff you've done as a volunteer, but there's still stuff you told me that we haven't talked about yet. So I want to people know about. I'm selling
Sounds
you.
good.
I
go on tangents, so yeah.
That's so funny. So I'll come back in about 15 minutes, then we'll continue on there. Okay?
Sounds good. I'll see you then.
I figured out how to do the split screen finally. Oh my god.
No problem. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, I'll talk to you after. Go for a break. We'll come back then. Okay, Jennifer?
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. Bye.
Okay.